My name's Kris Campbell, and I am the Health and Wellness Coordinator over at the Enright Center in Ellisville, and also the Enright Center here at the mall. And I'm going to teach today a class on doing some strength training from your home while we're stuck at home. So I've been doing this type of thing for over 35 years, have degrees in exercise physiology and exercise science. Have been doing strength training myself since I was probably in junior high, maybe freshman of high school. Very, very much a something that I recommend for everyone. And so today, though, I am going to focus on the group of 50 plus, which is our group of people that we work with at the Enright Centers. So just a little bit about me, just in case you don't know who I am. I also teach some balance classes at the Enright Center and oversee people coming in to do exercise on the equipment, whether it's strength equipment or the aerobic equipment. So today, let's talk about strength training. Strength training is one component of overall fitness. If we talk about fitness, we're usually talking about 4 different things. 3 of them, flexibility, strength, and cardiorespiratory fitness. And then we add one more to this group of the 50 plus population, and that is balance. So none of them are really any more important than the other. They are all going to be very important as far as your overall fitness and health. Today, focusing on strength, why is strength important? Some of the, I'm not going to go through the whole list, but for some of the major reasons why we look at your strength is just for your overall physical fitness, as far as your vessels, your muscles, your bones, as far as having good bone mass, your tendons, everything being able to function, your joints being able to function. Movement of the joints is a good thing, so we do want to keep them lubricated. Bone mass, muscle, like I said, muscle health. All of that is important. Reducing your blood pressure, your cholesterol levels, this is all helpful as well. Maintaining good upright posture, and which is important not only just for your posture, but also then for your balance and your mobility, your ability to get around. So just for overall health, again, I mentioned that mobility and just having a better life, just being more, having a better quality of life as you get older. The strength is going to be a big factor. So going to be really pushing the strength training. If you're not doing it already, to go ahead and get started. One thing you might keep in mind is if you haven't been doing any strength training at all or any exercise at all, it's a good idea to go ahead and get checked out by a physician. Make sure you pass a physical as far as what kind of a general shape you're in, and get an okay to get started on doing some strength training. Other than that, too, make sure you start out nice and easy. Ideally, too, you would do if you're not going ahead and doing some cardio, which you should be doing some cardio, some walking, swimming, exercise class of some sort, machines, maybe do that for a couple of weeks, 2 or 3 weeks at least, before you start off on the strength training. So some basic things as far as strength training. You may say, well, what's the difference between strength training and weight training? Really, these terms are used pretty interchangeably. However, with strength training is a really broad umbrella of any types of things that will improve your strength. Whereas weight training, we're usually referring to something where you're picking up a weight or you're pushing a weight, actually dumbbells or barbells or those machines. So with strength, there are other ways you can do that as well without having these machines or these gadgets. And one of the things we're going to use today is bands. Some of you have probably used exercise bands in the past or maybe currently, and we're going to talk about those in a moment. So bands, not really a weight per se, but it is a band and it is a resistance. And that's one way you can gain some strength. Also your body weight. Using your body weight. If you've done a push-up in the past, that's using your body weight to push up against a wall. So there's a lot of different things. Yoga, is one of the ways you can do strength training. And it again is with body weight and positioning. So yoga, water exercise would be another way you could do some strength training. You're using the resistance of the water as something to push against. And then basic yard work, types of things you might be doing outside, whether it's carrying firewood, whether it would be pushing a lawnmower, pulling, doing things like that, that would be considered strength training too. And that would be a combination of those as well, as far as using weight, resistance, body weight, and things like that. So different ways that you can gain some strength. And what you do, what you choose is really up to you. There's not going to be, I'm not going to say at this point that there's going to be a high, really a big benefit of one versus the other. I say do what is comfortable to you, what is good, what feels good to you. You may have some joint issues that may limit some of those choices. And if so, then let's go with what works. The bands are very versatile. Really like the bands as far as doing strength training, very inexpensive. You can do them anywhere. You could take them with you as you travel in your car, and you can do them wherever you are. So a good choice, but like I said, there are other options there. So I'm going to show you the exercises today, just with the bands and the dumbbells. But keep in mind, you could take a class in a water exercise class. You could take a yoga class. You could just get out there and do that yard work, and same thing, get your strength in. So ideally, as far as strength training, we would like to do this 2 or maybe 3 times a week. And very important to do a really, if you're doing a really difficult or strenuous strength training, you want to do it on non-consecutive days. So you might do mobility every day as far as moving your joints and things like this. That would be done every day. But as far as doing some really a little more strenuous strength training, you would want to do it on Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or just like Tuesday, Friday, and work really hard, and then let your muscles relax and rest in between, recover, and then go again really hard. So 2 to 3 times a week, non-consecutive days. As far as the exercises that you do, there are tons and tons of exercises out there. There's 10 exercises for all the different body muscle groups, but we're going to focus today just on a basic routine to do the major muscle groups. We always want to make sure we work all the major muscle groups. Usually when you do a workout routine, you start with the bigger muscle groups and you work your way down to the smaller groups. In the course of my balance class that we do a full body as far as stretching, moving, and strengthening all the major muscle groups. And when I talk major muscle groups, I'm generally talking about the chest muscles, the upper back muscles, the abs in the back around the bottom here. Also the big leg muscles of the thighs, the hamstrings, the quads, and the gluteals. So all those core muscles in the middle, those chest and upper back muscles. Those would be the ones you'd want to do first. And then you go down to doing things like the calf presses, your lower legs or your feet, the wrist exercises, or even the arm curls and the tricep presses and things. So those types of things you would do a little bit later. So that in mind, what are some of the basic exercises? Well, I thought I would show them to you and then kind of talk a little bit about the order of doing them again and some things about progression. And I'll give you a couple different options just in case you would rather be doing them with dumbbells or doing them with bands. I'll try to show them both ways. One thing to keep in mind with your strength training again is that you have with the upper body. Let's just start with the upper body, and I'll just change the screen around a couple times here. With your upper body here, you do have 2 planes of motion to be basic. Okay, obviously your body will move all over the place, but we're going to just talk about 2 planes of motion as far as our exercises. We're going to do a motion where we push out. That's called a bench press or a chest press, and that is pushing out, and that is working those chest muscles, these backs of the arm tricep muscles, and pushing out. Also, we do a motion where you pull back, right? Working that upper back, the opposite of the chest, working those biceps, the opposite of the triceps. So that pushing and pulling, those are all opposite muscles that work together. Very important to keep those muscles all strong. You wouldn't want to just do chest exercises over and over again and not do the upper back, or vice versa. Those muscles have to work together. They push and pull against each other. So 2 basic exercises: pushing out, chest press, pulling back, or row. All right. Then we have another plane, and that is up and down. So again, here you are pushing up, okay, upper shoulder muscles here, and some of these triceps again. So pushing up. And then we have pulling down. And when you're pulling down, you're working underneath here. You're working these side muscles, these lat muscles is what they call latissimus dorsi, and you're pulling down. You're also working a little bit of these biceps here. So it's a pull down. All right. So again, push up, pull down, push out, pull back. Those would be your basic exercises for your upper body. Okay, and they would get a pretty good range of your muscles up there. It'd be a good place to start. Now with the lower body, generally we're talking again about those gluteals and those hamstrings and quads. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to show you some basic squat muscles, squat exercises, or if some of you would have access to a leg press machine, very similar. But if you're doing them at home, which is what we're mostly talking about here, you're going to be doing like a squat type of motion. So I'm going to show you the squat motion, which does work your hamstrings, your quadriceps, and your gluteals. Then I'm also going to show you some hamstring curls, some leg extensions, which is the quadricep extensions. So we're working all of those muscles, again, on the legs, fronts and backs. You can't work just the hamstrings and leave out the quads or vice versa. They've got to both be worked. And so I'm going to show you those basic exercises, and then we'll add in a few extras. And when I say extras, I'm going to talk about the wrists, the hands, the fingers, the toes, and some of the arm curls and extensions. So, so if you were really pressed for time, getting in those basic ones, that would just be like 6 exercises, bam, 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 bam. That's all the time you have, that would be great. But if you have a little bit more time, then going ahead and doing some of the other exercises that I'm going to show you would be a little extra and be helpful. At least if you could do those, every other time or so. So show you the exercises. Generally, again, I'm going to show you with the bands, and with the bands, I'm going to talk about progression here in a minute. So right now I'm just going to grab a band to use. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some of these exercises that we're going to be doing for the upper body, and they're going to be in a chair. Usually you don't have to do them in the chair. A lot of these exercises can be done standing. In my class, we do a lot of them in the chair, but you can stand and do most of these exercises. And then I'm going to show you the arm ones, I'm going to show you the leg ones, and then we'll talk more about the order, like I said. So with the arm exercises, one of the ones I told you about was that chest press, pushing out. So I'm going to kind of follow the same routine I just did. Pushing out. Put this band behind you so that it comes out underneath your arm. Grab a hold of it right here. And how you grab it is really up to you. Some people like to wrap it around their thumb. Some people will wrap it around their entire hand a couple times. And however you grab it is really up to you. And the idea here is to get those elbows up a little bit. And then we're going to push straight out. So it's like this: straight out, back, straight out, and straight out. All right, I'll talk about sets and reps in a minute, but that's your basic chest press. All right, easy enough, right? Now, remember I talked about you've got to do the opposite muscle group. And so that would be your upper back. And so the easiest way to do this is sitting, is to take that band. I'm going to show you here by moving the screen a little bit, but take that band and put it underneath your feet. So it's like this. So both feet out in front of you. And then you have your knees slightly bent so they're not locked down straight. And you're sitting up straight, so you're always sitting up straight, shoulders back. And what you're doing is you're pulling this band to your waist, like such. Back down, pull back for 2, 3. So I'm not bending at all at the waist. I'm sitting up straight, arms are out. They come back to the waist, out, back to the waist. Elbows are going straight back. Okay, so that is your row motion for your upper back. All right. Now, do you remember the others I talked about? Next one I would do would be the lat pull, and that's a pull down. You say to me, how can I do that? Well, we did that when we were in school by doing a chin up or some sort of a chin up, or we maybe had a machine that had a bar and you reached up and you pulled down on the bar. And that's how you did this exercise. But we've got a little trick with the band here. And it's about the best you can do without having your chin up bar or lat machine to use. But what you do is you take your band, and I like to fold it over just so that it doesn't flap around all over the place and hit me in the face. So I grab the band and I hold it about 4 inches, 5 inches apart on my thumbs here. Okay, sitting up straight again, feet flat on the floor. And what I do is I take that band up in the sky as high as I can get it, and I come down. And as I come down with it, you're going to see it start to come apart a little bit. And then I'm going to bring it to my chest like this. So it comes together, it relaxes, it goes up. I pull it down and I pull it back to the chest with a tight motion of those shoulder blades going together. Back up, it relaxes. Back down, pull back and pull tight. Now, if you have an issue with your elbow that you can't get those arms up straight like that, then maybe just go up part of the way, as far as you can go, down and back, up, down and back. All right. So that is your lat pull. All right. The next one you would do then would be your shoulder press. Shoulder press is going to be pushing up. So with your band, what you're going to need to do is take it, put it underneath your leg, underneath your thighs. This is one that would be hard to do standing. Standing, you'd have to use a dumbbell. So you'd have it under your thighs, and what you're doing is you're starting here at your shoulders, and you're pushing straight up. Back down to the shoulders, up for 2, down to the shoulders, up for 3. All right, and there you go. Okay, so on those 4 exercises, I'm going to go back through them now with some dumbbells to show you the same exercise with dumbbells. And then we're going to go on to the next exercises. So with a dumbbell, when it comes to dumbbells, you all know this already, but you can get these 2s, you can get 3s, you can get 4s, 5s, you name it. And keep in mind that you may not use the same dumbbell with each of these exercises. You may have one that you can use, a 5 or a 6 pound weight, but you have one that you can only use a 2 or a 3 pound weight. So you're going to have to use your judgment on that when we talk about progression. So same exercises. We did the chest press and back. We did up and down. This is going to be a little harder to do some of these with dumbbells, but what I'm going to show you here is the chest press might be the hardest one to do. Unless you can lay on your back, unless you have like a bench and you can lay on your back on the bench, it's going to be hard to push against gravity. So you generally, what you would be doing is you'd be in a machine and you're pushing out like this at a gym maybe, or you would be on a bench line on your back and you would be pushing up. So what I recommend to people, if they're going to try to do a bench press, there's 2 ways you can do it. You can do like a wall push-up where you get yourself against the wall and then you push back against the wall and push back again. So that's one way you can do these without a band. Another way you can do it is just like I was just doing, is lying back in this chair as far back as I can go and being careful not to slip off. And I'm not really doing a full bench press, but I'm doing kind of an incline press, but still I'm getting some work of this chest muscles. And I'm laying back here and I'm pushing up to the sky. All right. So that is a dumbbell method to do that bench press. All right. So then we would go to that rowing motion. Same thing. Against gravity, pulling back, it's not the same thing. We're going to have to use that gravity. So what you do on a row is My favorite way to do it is to have the chair here and to lean on the chair so that I've got a hold of the dumbbell and I'm leaning on the chair like this, and I've got it down to the floor, down by under the chair, and I pull it up. Just like before when I was pulling back to my waist with that band, I'm just pulling up to my waist with that dumbbell. And obviously I'm doing these both one at a time here. And I would flip around and I would do obviously my right. And you can put your knee up or keep your legs down. It's up to you how you do that, but you're just doing the same motion. And that would be your row. So you've done your chest press, you've done your row. Next is that lat pull. It's gonna be really hard to do your lat pull with your dumbbells. My only idea, is to try to do a similar motion to what I did with the bands. Unless you have a bar or something, you can pull yourself up from underneath, like grab a hold of it and try to pull yourself up off the floor. That's going to be pretty difficult to do, but you could try. So even just the attempt to pulling yourself up is going to be working those muscles. Another thing you can do is just taking your dumbbells up above your head like this, and then bring them down in front of you and then pull them back to your chest. So it's up, bring them down and back, and back. It's not really going to be exactly the same, but at least you're trying to get some of those lats worked and roll those shoulders out. So that's your dumbbell lat pull, the best as we can do. And here we're going to go with now the dumbbell press. So you're up, back down to the shoulders, back up, back up. Simple as that. Arms are going straight up. So you just got your 4 basic exercises for your upper body, and pressing, pulling, pushing up, pulling down with either your band, which is going to be a little bit easier, but you can also do them with the dumbbells, either way. So we come back around to a couple more on the upper body, but I want to get those lower body ones in. I'm going to do 2 of those, a couple of those standing, and then we're going to go back to sitting. So with the standing motion, the best thing you can do for those leg muscles, all the way from those gluteals and down to those hamstrings and these thighs here, is doing what we call a squat. And what you're going to do, though, is you're going to do a modified squat. And there's 2 ways I'm going to show you how to do it. One is in this chair here. Actually, I might show you 3 ways. In this chair here, we can do a chair squat. And the chair squat is sitting down to your chair. Always make sure you have a really strong, solid chair, nothing that's going to break, trip, slide, flip over. So you're going to sit down to your chair. You're going to come back up. You're not going to use your hands on the chair or on your knees unless you need to at the very beginning, first few times. But we're really going to focus on trying to get yourself up out of that chair without using those hands. Even if you've got to swing your arms a little bit to get yourself up. So ideally, get to where this gets easier, and then you can start keeping your hands maybe across your chest and coming up. Once you get to that, and that's too easy, you can start even holding a dumbbell on your chest and coming up. All right, so we're going to talk about that progression again. So let's go back to this basic exercise here. Is when you're coming up, you've got those knees straight ahead, you're making sure you're safe on that chair, and you're not using those arms any more than you have to. You're really going to barely use them, and just try to continue to use them less and less. Another very important thing is you keep your head up. You're not leaning forward. Your back is not like this. Your back is up. So chest is out, shoulders are back. When you stand up, you keep that head up. You do not look at the floor. You look up, straight across. You don't go look down at the floor. So it's a straight up motion. Okay. If that motion is too difficult for you, if you've got some knee injuries, knee problems, Maybe you don't want to go down that low to get up out of that chair. Another option that we show you is doing a modified chair squat. And so what you're doing is you're behind the chair now, or at a countertop, someplace safe, and you're just doing a partial squat. So you're not going down low enough to sit down all the way in that chair. You're just going down, back up, down, back up. I notice here too, I'm doing the best I can, keeping that head up, sticking that rear end out, keeping those shoulders back, and I'm not doing this. All right, I'm not leaning forward, I'm keeping those shoulders back. I'm doing this motion. Okay, so that is a partial squat, a chair squat. It would be fine to as well to start with that one and then to go to the one inside the chair once you get enough leg strength to be able to get up out of the chair. Now, another way that you can do that, and some of you may have done this in the past, where you do a wall squat. And a wall squat is where you're going to put your back against the wall. You're going to squat down. And I'm going to show you, just kind of pretend that there's a wall behind me. And I'm going to squat down, lean back against that wall, and I'm just going to hold. I'm just leaning against that wall, and I'm making my legs just hold that position. And that would be a wall squat. So another one I'm going to show you while I'm still standing is a leg curl. The leg curl is working just the hamstrings. So we just now worked our quads, our hamstrings, and our gluteals. And we're going to work hamstrings by doing this motion. Bringing that up, hold, back down. Hold for a second, back down. Other leg, hold. All right, basic leg extension. All right, now. Sorry, that was leg curl. Leg extension is the one we're doing now. And leg extension, we're going to sit in the chair. We just worked those hamstrings. Now we're going to work these quads. With our extension motion is going to be bringing our leg up, hold, hold, hold. All right, other leg, of course. All the way up and hold, and hold. Okay, so with those three exercises, we've worked this middle section of legs from the knees pretty much up to the waist. And we didn't do any marching, and I would highly recommend doing some marching too. And the marching would be these hip flexor muscles right here, and that would just be bringing those legs up. Okay, so it's again a standing motion. All right, so those 4 exercises, you're pretty covered for that area. And so I want to go ahead and talk about, and with that, we'll talk about progression in a minute, but for the most part, you're not using your bands, you're just using your body weight for those exercises. So another one I wanted to show you before I get seated again and get my face back in the picture is to show you a calf press. And with calf press, you can do them sitting, but a lot of times it's a good job to go ahead and do them standing if you can. And what we're going to do is we're going to put our feet behind the chair, and we're going to stand up on our toes, straight up on our toes. And you're just going to do a set of these, and we're going to talk sets and reps. So just stand up. Now, another thing that I like to do in my class, in my balance classes, I have people to not only do them straight ahead like this, but I also have you do sets with the toes out and your heels together. So you'll feel these inner thigh muscles, or inner calf muscles, in here working. So it's like this. And you'll do a set. And I also have them to do a set with their toes together. So it's up like this. And you'll probably want the chair in front of you because this makes your balance a little off. But you'll feel here these outer leg muscles here working. Okay, so very good on those lower legs to do those exercises. All right, so back to the seated position. So we've done some really basic exercises. We've got all the major muscle groups worked now. We added in those calves, and I don't know that I'd consider the calves a major muscle group, but they're pretty dang important, especially for your balance and being able to be mobile. So I want to talk a little bit more about some upper body. One of the other upper body ones that we do our bicep and tricep. So again, these are muscles that work opposite of each other. So you need to keep your biceps strong and your triceps strong. So how you work those two, biceps, you have that band underneath your feet on the floor, sitting up straight. Then you're bringing your elbow or your hands up to your shoulders, bending at the elbows. So it's like this, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Basic arm curl. Now you can also do those with your dumbbells. Easy enough, right? You can do them separate of each other. You can do them at the same time. You can do them standing. You can do them sitting. So a lot of options there with your arm curls. Now when it comes to triceps, the backs of your arms, a couple different ways to do them with the band. Here I'll show you. One way is to fit the band around behind your neck, but not up on your neck. So it's on your shoulder here. And you're going to grab a hold of the band right here about the shoulder, and you're going to push down. Straightening out the arms. The arms go all the way straight, so they almost lock tight and back. Now, another way to do this, especially if you don't like that band climbing up on your neck and possibly pulling on your hair, I want you to try it this way, which is to the side. You got a hold of the bands, and they're about 6 inches apart or so on your positioning here. Your elbows are straight out to the side, and then your elbows bend or straighten, sorry, but your arms don't move, your shoulders don't move at all. So you basically straighten out that arm. Make sure you got enough band to straighten out, back in, and straighten out. Depending on what the color of your band is how you're gonna start that position, but you'll get the hang of it after you've done it a few times. So this is your tricep. And there are other ways to do triceps with bands. There are some ways to do triceps with dumbbells. Some of you have done this old standard way of doing this where you lean over on the chair. This is one of my favorites, by the way. You lean over on the chair and you have your elbow at your side, just like you were doing the one before when we did the row. This time you're straightening out your arm, tightening that muscle, back down, straighten out that arm, back, straightened out. And that is a tricep kickback. And every time you pull that arm up, hold that really tight. Another way that you can do it is, and you've seen people do this where you put it in your thumb and you put it up over your head, and maybe you do these one-arm versions like this, where you're again straightening out that arm. I don't like this one as well because I'm really not happy about the idea that somebody could hit themselves in the head with a dumbbell. They do it sometimes two-handed as well, putting it again between your thumbs, up over your head, and pushing straight up. And then again, if you're going to do it this way, just being careful not to hit yourself in the head with a dumbbell. So different ways you can work the triceps. So triceps, biceps. Okay, we worked a little bit of both of those. Another, again, we're getting down to these smaller groups now. So these are kind of extra workout. Not the four that we did that we said was the core. But we're going to take your band and do some shoulder work. With our bands, we can work our shoulders to the sides. Right, you can pick it up. These will be working your deltoids, the tops of your shoulders. And you can also then do those to the front. Those front deltoids, both of which you can also do with your dumbbells, standing or sitting. So again, out to the sides. And out to the front. Just make sure if you're standing for this one, you're not doing this where you're throwing yourself back and forth with your back. Your back needs to be held steady, held tight with your belly muscles, standing up straight, lifting your arms straight up. All right, so there you go with shoulders. You've got shoulders, triceps, biceps. Okay. So I did mention core as well. So one thing that I'll show you is one of the ones I like to do for your belly muscles, your abs, is to sit on the front half of the chair and to fall back to the back of the chair and then come back up. And as you get more advanced with that, you can bring your elbow to your knee. So you're just going back to the chair, coming up, elbow to knee, and you're working these belly muscles. All right, so to work the back, there's a couple that I like to do that are pretty simple, and I'll show you one more that's a little bit more advanced, but one that you can do is just sitting in your chair just like this, and basically what you're doing is you're rotating your belly in, or rotating your hips so that your belly goes in, belly goes out, back in, out, in, out, and out. And then you can do the opposite direction by picking yourself off the chair. Okay, now you notice my shoulders, I'm not going sideways like this. My shoulders are staying as still as I can keep them, and I'm picking myself up, contracting these side muscles, getting my hips up off the chair. All right, pretty easy, basic middle section work that you can do. Another one that you can do, and being very careful not to make yourself dizzy doing this, is to lean over to the floor and pick yourself back up. So lean over to the floor, pick yourself back up. Nice and slow, so you don't make yourself dizzy and you work in that lower back. All right. Didn't mention the wrist. So with the wrist, obviously you can use just your hands, or you can use a dumbbell, and you can do some wrist curls is what they call them, which is basically just curling this wrist this direction. And you would want to flip it over and go the other direction. All right, you can also do some twisting back and forth this direction. All right, you can do those with both hands. You can also do, one of my favorites is to just make a tight fist, fingers out, 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 and go around the other direction. And you can do this in all kinds of positions. Down to the sides, to the front, upstairs, just changing the positions. All right, and doing those fingers out and back. All right, so wrists, elbows, we've worked pretty much everything. One of the things I like to do on the toes, those lower legs, two different ones I want to add for the lower legs here. One of them is picking your feet up off the floor, staying on your heels and just bringing your toes up. So it's like you're tapping your toes. You're on your heels, and bringing those toes up. You can tap, 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 and then you can use your feet out to the outside. So now my feet are out, and I'm tapping my toes again. Now my feet are to the inside, so my toes are together and like this, and I'm on my heels again, and I'm tapping my toes. So those are ones that you can do for your front of the legs here, the front muscles. So we work those calves on the back sides. We want to work those front sides as well. So you can tap those toes in, tap them straight ahead, tap them outside, and come back around, do it more later. So yeah, just relaxing those muscles. So on the toes, in the arches, I should mention the arches too. Always a good idea to have yourself, and I didn't mention this with the hands, but if you don't have a tennis ball, grab yourself a tennis ball, maybe even one of those stress balls. A tennis ball would be good for your arches, to put it down on the floor. Roll those arches over that tennis ball, both feet. If you have one that you can, if it's a soft one, this one's not a soft one, but if you have a soft one, you can work on it with your grip and hanging on and squeezing on that tennis ball, or get yourself a sponge sponge ball to squeeze on with those fingers. The other one to do with your toes is to put a towel down on the floor in front of you, or to pretend that you have a towel in front of you, and grab those toes, or use those toes to grab that towel and pull that towel back. So you're grabbing the towel, pull with your toes until the towel is down here. And take the towel, stretch it back out again, roll it back up again. All right, so you're doing the toes, pulling back. All right. So with that, we've pretty much worked our entire body. Like I said, making sure that you definitely do those first ones that we did, the push, the pull, the up and the down, and then those squats, hamstrings, and quad muscles. Another one that I didn't show you before is working the outer hip, and that is standing again and going to the outside. That would be another good strength one to add in at some point. So like I said, there's more and more that you can add in. But to give you just a basic, making sure you get those first ones done. And then if you have time to add in anything else, go ahead and continue on. Do all these in class. We'd be glad to show you more of them. If you feel a need for more clarification on some of these, feel free to email me, call the Enderite Center email, kcampbell at area10.org, area10agency.org. So let's talk a little bit about progression and intensity. I talked about these bands, okay? Generally speaking, the yellow band is going to be your lighter, thinner band. And it may go up to a red band, maybe a little bit thicker. So if you want a little bit more intensity, up to then a green band. Finally, most packages are going to stop with a blue band if you buy them in a group, blue band being your toughest. There are, however, black bands and some gray bands and some that are even tougher than these. But ideally, you can start with your yellow band, or if you do quite a bit of yard work, that band might be a little bit too light for you. You might want to start with the red one. And then as you get stronger, the idea is that you're going to go up to the heavier band as you get stronger. You might get to where you do some of these exercises with the yellow band and some of them with a red or blue band, a red or a green band, depending on what the exercise is. So use your best judgment there. The same with these dumbbells. Again, you may start with using some 1 or 2 pound. You may go on up to 3s. You may get to where you're doing a row or an arm curl with a 3 or 4 or 5 pound weight, but you may only be able to do these shoulder presses with these 2s. It's a much smaller muscle group when you're doing those shoulder presses. So you don't have to use the same on all of them. And a good idea to have a selection of the dumbbells and a selection of the bands. Like I said, the bands will usually come in a group, a package of a couple different colors, and depending on the brands, like I said, these are TheraBands, and they do have the yellow, red, green, blue progression, but you may have a different set of bands and the colors are different. So that's one way to progress. So let's talk a little bit about progression, and as far as I mentioned before, 2 to 3 times a week doing your exercises, right? Well, I'm going to assume that you don't know what sets and reps are. So a set, when I do a set, I'm doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and say I stop there. That is going to be 1 set. But that was 6 repetitions, okay? 1 set of 6 repetitions. What I'd like for you to do is start with doing your exercises and do just 1 set of everything, 1 set of the exercises. And your repetitions that first time through, second time might only be 5, 6, or 7 reps. You don't push it too hard. Just go ahead and stop whenever you feel like that's enough. You know, you may do 6 or 7 repetitions of these, but you may only do 3 repetitions of these because you don't do that exercise very often. Unless you like fly around like a bird, you're not doing this very often. So you be really careful on doing those exercises that you don't do very often. So your repetitions don't have to be the same on all the exercises. And so that's your sets, that's your reps. And what you're doing is you're going to build up each time as you get stronger, it may not be each time you do them, but as you get stronger and you feel like, wow, I was doing 6, 7 of these. Now I'm doing 8, 9, 10 of these. Eventually I'm up to where I can do 12, 13. Now you're going to shoot for between 10 and 15. All right. So, and again, every exercise, as far as which weight you use, as far as how many reps you do, they're all different, but you're shooting for getting between 10 and 15. Now on each exercise, if I'm getting to where I can do, 10 or 15 repetitions on that pretty easily, the next thing I would do is probably start to do 2 sets. If I have time to do 2 sets, I would go ahead and do a second round. I would go through all my exercises once. I would go back and go through them all again. And then after I got to where I could do, more than that, I could start increasing to a different band. I might even do a different band for the first set and the lighter band for the second set. You've got a lot of different variables that you can use as far as your progression, but the main thing is to be really careful with your progression. You don't go from doing 3 or 4 reps to doing 25 reps. Ideally, I wouldn't even want you doing more than 15 reps. Is if you can do more than 15 of them, go to doing another set, or go to doing a heavier band or a heavier dumbbell. So you're not doing too many repetitions over and over. So start with 1 set, move up to where you're doing 2 sets, or you might even get to where you're doing 3 sets of exercises, and that's fine if you have the time to do it, and depending on what your goals are. Reps 10 to 15 are your goals, but again, you may start at 3, 4, 5, 6, building your way up. Okay. Another thing about so some other basic rules for strength training: making sure you breathe. Very important to be breathing, not holding your breath. So you're not holding your breath and doing your pushes. You make sure you breathe. Most people, it feels really natural to breathe out as you push and then relax. But if it doesn't feel natural to you to do it that way, you do it whatever way feels natural, just as long as you're breathing. Okay. So do not hold your breath. Generally speaking, breathe in through the nose, out through the mouth. In through the nose, out through the mouth. All right. So I mentioned working all the major muscle groups, generally doing them first, the heavier muscle groups, the bigger muscle groups, and then going down to those smaller wrist motions, calf motions, fingers and toes. Ideally, you do opposite muscles all equal. So if you're doing 2 sets of the chest exercises, you also do 2 sets of the upper back exercises. Now that might be different if you have been told by a physician, a physical therapist, that you have something's unequal as far as maybe you need to do some more upper back exercises because you're starting to get this forward positioning with your shoulders from too much screen time or too much knitting. So we need to pull those shoulders back. So you might do only 1 set of chest exercises. You might do 2 sets of upper back exercises. And you might also start doing some other types of things to get that upper shoulder area opened up. So otherwise you're doing everything equal, but if you have an imbalance that you need to straighten out, and that might be with the help of a physical therapist, and I'd be glad to talk to you about that as well. You might do 2 or 3 sets more than you would do to just get things like that straightened out. So let me know if you have questions about that. Another thing to do is to keep in mind, there's never any jerking or thrusting with weights. This is not powerlifting. This is strength training. So you're never doing anything quick. All of your motions are going to be under control. Generally, if you want to make sure of that, you can do a count. You can do a 3-second count. 1, 2, 3. Hold for 1 second. 1, 2, 3. Back down. 1, 2, 3. Hold. 1, 2, 3. You don't want to just let it drop back down. The idea then is to do an eccentric contraction where you're also working your muscle on the way down, and you're also controlling and not hurting that joint. So always with all your exercises, count of 3, 1 second, count of 3 back. So everything's under control. There's no jerking. Also, don't lock your joints. So ideally on any of the exercises you do, you get up to a straight position, but you don't lock them straight. That's whether you're doing those leg extensions. That's whether you're doing the the tricep extensions, the arm goes out straight, but it doesn't really lock straight, okay? Another thing that's very important with strength training is to listen to your body. If you have an elbow or shoulder or knee that starts to hurt when you're doing these, you don't go with the no pain, no gain. We're not going to try to muscle our way through it and see if it goes away. We're going to go ahead and stop doing the exercise. We're going to pay attention to what might be going on. Are you doing something incorrectly? Are you doing too much? Did you progress too fast? Do you just have a joint that has something going on with it and this is going to aggravate it? So let's don't make it worse. Let's go ahead and stop what you're doing. Take a look at what's going on. Talk to me, talk to a physical therapist, somebody that can help you figure out what the problem is. If you need to, do the usual ice, rest, compression, make sure that that joint is in good shape. Then you could probably pick it up again, maybe, depending on what the issue is, and get going again. And you just need to be really careful with these joints. We don't want to aggravate them. So again, I want to go back through one thing about that progression, okay? Just going to give you an example of progression here. So I'm going to read something to you, and this is a example of progression, okay? Start out with a weight you can lift only about 8 times, or a band that you're going to do this exercise about 6, 7, 8 times. Keep using that until you become strong enough to go at least 10 to 15 times. Once you can go 10 to 15 times, you may add another set, right? You may be doing that second set. Once that gets to be where pretty easy that you can do those 2 sets, it might be time to go on up to a different dumbbell, to a different barbell, to a different band. In yoga, that will be where you're increasing your time that you're holding positions, or you may be going to a more difficult position. You may start out with a position, and then now you're going to a more difficult version of that same position. So that progression, you just keep progressing. However, you will get to a point where you're not going to progress forever. And you will get to a point where it's like, wow, I'm strong, I'm flexible, I feel good. And so now I'm maintaining. I'm going to maintain where I am. I'm going to continue with the same sets, the same reps, and the same intensity on the dumbbells and bands, and maintain as long as I can maintain. Your body will become, less strong as you get older if you let it. But if you don't let it, if you try to maintain, do everything you can to keep it active, keep those muscles strong, you may not make a lot of progression toward getting stronger, but at least you won't lose your strength, and you'll be able to stay active and stay mobile, stay upright with your balance. So also a very important thing I didn't mention before, another reason to stay strong is because when you fall, and we all will, when you fall, you will be able to get yourself up off the floor if you're staying strong. So another good reason to keep your strength. So another thing that I didn't mention about strength training, very important, before you do your strength training, to do some type of a warm-up, whether that's a walk, getting on a machine, exercise machine. In my balance class, we go through just some simple motion routine where we just move every joint and get all of our joints warmed up. So whatever you do before you do strength training, ideally you would do some warm up. Same thing that when you get done with the strength training, ideally you would do a little bit of stretching. So you could do stretching in between your strength training. You could also do it at the end, but ideally you do some stretching. A little bit more about the order of things, because I kind of showed you the order, showing you kind of like pressing, pulling, pushing, pulling the legs. But if you're doing your own routine, those of you that do my balance class, we kind of go back and forth. We'll do a couple of arm motions, and then we'll do a leg, and then we'll go back and do another arm motion. Then we'll come back and do a leg. And so ideally what you do with your strength training again is maybe you do a squat motion, and then maybe you do the presses, and then you maybe do the pulls, but then you go back to a leg and you do a leg curl, and then you do something else with the arm. So you can kind of mix it up that way, so you're not doing all legs and then all the upper body. And again, if you do the bigger muscles first and then go down to those smaller muscles, that's going to be a little better for you too. So if you have questions about that, if you'd like something in writing, like just something to follow, let me know. I'd be glad to send you something through email. And so it's something you can just follow for yourself. But that's basically the gist of strength training, the reason to do it, how to do it. If you're not able to go to a gymnasium right now, which a lot of us aren't, being able to do it at home, whether it's on one of the Zoom classes that we have or that somebody has, or whether it's doing just on your own with your in front of your TV in your living room. Either way, it's going to be very important for you to do. Do let me know if you have questions. Hopefully we covered everything good enough to get you started. And just let me know if you have questions. I'll be glad to help down the road.